What's up, world, YouTube? Thank you for tuning in, checking out my video. Right now it's approaching midday, and I woke up really early this morning. I tried to catch the sunrise because it's a day off for me, and I could really relax and just indulge and get into it and be one with my communication with the sun. But it was very cloudy for the majority of this morning, and so because of that, I decided to find a place and try to communicate with the earth. I wanted to ground myself, and I went to a park, and I took my shoes off, and I sat on the ground to try to ground myself, and the energy just didn't feel right. I don't know why. I don't know if it's, if there's something about that park, that area, or being in the city and it not being a great idea to ground myself, but the energy wasn't right, so I came here because I've been here quite a few times, and this is where I watch the sunrise above the horizon. I'll let you look at the horizon. And this place, the energy is usually pretty good. So I came here because I know I'm familiar with the type of energy in this place. So I guess learning point from this is make sure the energetics of the place where you kick it, you spend your time is good, because I think it matters. But anyways, this video is, you see the title. This video is about time. And why am I talking about time? Why is time a thing? Why is it relevant? Well, I'll explain something to you about myself that is relevant to this topic. Lately, I've been having lots of thoughts about existential stuff, things related to our existence. And I've been wondering, like, why am I here? What's the purpose? Like, what am I doing? Like, what should I be doing? And I think if I ask most anyone this question, they'd probably say something like, it's about free will, it's about enjoying yourself, it's about spreading love and things like this, which I agree with that. But you can't overlook the feelings that you have, and you can't ignore them. I think they need to be addressed, because if you don't address them, maybe they probably won't go away on their own. Or maybe they will go away, but maybe because you didn't address them, maybe you didn't learn the lesson that those energies was trying to teach you. Or it could be many different possible reasons. But I think the reason for me feeling the way that I've been feeling in regards to what I just mentioned is that I have, right now, in my 12th house, Capricorn's in my 12th house. My moon's also in my 12th house in Capricorn. The moon is your mind and your needs and your feelings. I have Pluto, which is the planet of transformation, deep transformation. Usually the Plutonian energy puts you. The Plutonian energy puts you in a situation where you see something that transforms you. And sometimes transformative things aren't pleasant. Sometimes they're really scary, or sometimes they're really extreme. And that's the type of energy that's in my 12th house right now. So maybe that has something to do with it. And also I have Saturn in my 12th house. And Saturn is about to conjunct Pluto in my 12th house. They're coming closer together, and they're about to align. And I think they'll be aligned early next year. But Saturn is all about structure. Saturn is the ultimate teacher. Wherever Saturn energy goes in your life, on your chart, that's the part of your life that's about to get really real. Things are about to get real. So I guess you could think the ultimate teacher, the energy of the ultimate teacher, Saturn, the energy of transformation, Pluto, and my native, the moon energy that I was born with, it's there. So all of that is there, and the moon is your inner mind, is your inner mind. And the 12th house, what is the 12th house? 12th house is all about the other side of life, those deeper questions, your deep subconscious. It's about it's about isolation. It's about just deep introspection. It's related to mental illness. It's related to being incarcerated, being in any type of isolated situation. And it's about also seeing the big picture of everything and understanding everything. It's a completion type of energy. So I think that's the type of energy that I'm navigating these days. And I can tell you that the feeling of these energies are, I don't want to say unpleasant, but they feel very burdensome sometimes, and they feel like they carry like a huge amount of responsibility. And I'm trying to respond to the responsibilities of these energies and do the best I can, and put out as much positive energy as I can in the face of dealing with this. But that's the situation right now, and here I am talking about time. And why am I talking about time? Well, when you talk about existential stuff, you can't separate it from time. When you talk about existence, you have to talk about time. And that's why I decided to look into time and find out and go into deep detail about what time really is. So in this video, I'm going to talk about time, but a lot of what I talk about with time, you're going to already know. It's going to, be, obvious. But some of the stuff that I'm going to talk about, maybe you don't know. Maybe it's in your blind side. But nevertheless, I think I need to lay out this information first before I go into deeper things that I want to talk about based on what I've learned in my, rediscovery of what time actually is. So okay, so here's the layout of this video. Here's how I'm going to lay it out. Alright, so the first thing that I'm going to talk about in the video, and it's going to be laid out in layers, because I don't think you can define, especially time, I don't think you can define anything like in just one layer. I think there's lots of layers to everything. So I'm going to lay this out in layers. First, I'm going to talk about objective time. Objective time is the time that everyone agrees upon to be real and exact. I'm going to talk about how objective time came to be measured, why it was measured, and why it's relevant in life today, and why it was relevant in life yesterday. Secondly, I'm going to talk about subjective time. Subjective time is the time that we perceive, and we don't agree upon this time because it's different for everyone. Subjective means it's based on your own personal interpretation and feelings. And lastly, I'll talk about how time works in the universe, like the composition of the universe and how time moves through the universe, or how the universe moves through time, however you want to look at it. And I'm speaking about time as if time is a real thing. I don't believe it's a real thing. I believe it's just a concept, a tool. So, if I talk about time as if it's a real thing, I don't really mean that. I'm just using it for the sake of a teaching point or a discussion point. But here we go. Let's start this off. Let's talk about what's objective time. Objective time is the time that everyone agrees upon, and objective time with objective time we can't use our own interpretation to measure it, so we have to use something from the outside to measure it. And the way we usually measure objective time is nowadays it's through clocks, but a long time ago, let's say prior to like 2,000 years ago, calendars were the primary measure for objective time. And calendars, they don't measure time precisely, but they show time. They show like a general overview of the place and time, or the general overview of the measure of time of that moment. And the reason why calendars were all that was needed prior to like 2,000 years ago, because with a calendar it measures just days, months, and years, just basically the earth, the moon, and the sun's relationship. And that's what time's all about. It time takes the oldest things and compares our relationship with those things. You know, time is relative. You can't talk about time without you can't talk about time and talk about one thing in isolation. You always have to talk about time in relationship in relation to something else. And historically, we've used the Earth, the Sun, and the Moon as the reference point for us talking about and measuring time. But later, after like 2,000 years ago, specific time became even more important. Well, okay, I didn't mention why calendar time was important. Calendar time was important because of survival. You needed to know the patterns of the upcoming Earth, Moon, and Sun cycles to know when food would be abundant and know when the weather would change. This was all about survival. So later, or earlier or later in history, we needed more specific ways to tell time. And one of the earliest methods to tell time was the sundial. The sundial, of course, used the shadow of the sun to tell to tell the time of the day. We know how a sundial works, right? And after the sundial, clocks became increasingly more complicated or more advanced. And after the sundial, and excuse me, this is not going to be perfect. I'm just laying out how different clocks evolved over time, and I don't know the exact time frames, but I'm laying them out pretty close, I think. But there was the sundial, then there was a water clock, a clock based on water dripping and filling up a container. There was a candle clock, like how long it took a candle to completely melt. They made a clock that way. Thereafter, there was a clock with a pendulum. They learned, like through learning physics, they learned that you could use a pendulum to keep track of time throughout a day. And of course, there were other clocks, and then later mechanical clocks. Mechanical clocks became very standard. They were very precise in keeping time. And as we moved up closer to the present, let's say like 1,000 years ago, world domination and the race to get riches from steal riches, take riches, and rule the world. Everyone wanted to do that. A lot of all civilizations, not all, but many, wanted to assert their dominance and rule something and take over something. And one of the primary modes or tools or transportation was one thing that would help a civilization conquer and spread their empire. And travel over the seas became like a primary mode of transportation to help a civilization expand and conquer and search for new lands. And with navigating the ocean, it's very dangerous if you don't have proper technology, because if you don't navigate properly, you will surely die, because you'll be lost in the ocean, and you look around every which way, it'll be nothing but water, and it'll be impossible to find the right way maybe, and you'll just have to just go in one direction and hope you get lucky. But it was real risky business, real dangerous. So they measured their distance back in those days they tracked their location back in those days. They didn't have GPS, so they had to use the earth. They had to be real crafty and use the earth. So they could tell their latitude by the position of the sun, where the sun was in the sky, and they could tell latitude, they could use the sun, the position of the sun during midday, but longitude, it was much more difficult to do. But what they figured out was that with longitude, you could figure out longitude by keeping track of the rotation of the Earth. And of course, it's like 24 hours. Actually, it's not exactly 24 hours, but you need a clock to track that. And the clock needs to be really, really precise. And by knowing what time it is of the day, you can kind of keep track of your latitude. So you can use time to keep track of your longitude. You can use time to keep track of your longitude, and you can use the sun to keep track of your latitude. So that's how they did. And in order to do that, they needed very, very, very precise clocks. Okay, so fast forward even more into the future. Let's say like the past 1 or 200 years ago, the Industrial Revolution. Different industrial revolutions and civilizations really striving to build themselves and expand. The need for that rose, and clocks had to be more precise for the purpose of organizational purposes, to organize men to be at a certain place at certain points in time in order to get things done. It made things much more organized, and you got things done, and progress could be made. So clocks were used to organize progress, and also the pay system. Like eventually, like later on, and more to the present, pay system was based on time. So you were paid based on the amount of time you did, more so than the amount of work you did. Well, it depends on who you work for and your negotiation with your boss, if there were even negotiations, if you were not a slave. But yeah, that's time history in a nutshell. That's time history in a nutshell. So clocks kept evolving. Like the invention of electricity evolved clocks to even a more degree of accuracy. And nowadays, like the past 10, 20 years, clocks use electromagnetic energy to create their time. So electromagnetic energy is what's used today, and it's the most precise so far. So that's objective time that we all can agree upon, and we need like an external outside device to measure objective time. And objective time, in order for it to be good, it needs to have precision, and it needs to be precise. So that's objective time, and that's why we needed objective time in a nutshell. So now let's talk about subjective time. What is subjective time? Subjective time is the time that we feel inside. And is this time reliable? No, it's not reliable, because everyone feels differently. Everyone's going to experience and perceive time differently. So we can't use that time to organize and make things happen. It won't work out. It won't work out. But subjective time is based on a lot of things. Subjective time, the way we perceive time, can change and fluctuate in many different ways. Subjective time is based on things like your diet. It's based on things like your environment, things like your thoughts. And let's talk about those few things. Your diet. Now, of course, what you eat determines how you experience time. I mean, we all know this. And to talk about diet is beyond the scope of this video, so I won't talk about diet. But what dietary thing I will talk about is, let's say, like a stimulant, like a drug, like caffeine, cocaine, ephedrine, something that speeds you up. When you take a stimulant speeds you up on the inside. So when you speed yourself up on the inside, it slows down your interpretation of what you see on the outside. So you're able to get more done. You're able to see more. You're able to comprehend more under those circumstances. But I guess the side effect is that you use yourself up at a really fast rate that maybe isn't sustainable. And let's say something that slows you down, maybe like alcohol, drug like marijuana, something like this, things like this. Like, I'm just using them as examples because they have positive, negatives. They have other effects other than it's slowing you down, which is beyond the scope of this video as well. But the point is, when something slows you down on the inside, it speeds up your interpretation of what's on the outside. So things become a little bit more murky and a little bit more difficult to navigate and find your way through. Things are difficult to catch. When things are slow, it's easy to catch it. When things are fast, it becomes difficult to catch it. Now, that's your diet. Now, your environment affects time. Things like hot, cold, and even just light itself affects how you perceive time. Now, for example, cold. Cold slows down time. We know this because you put something in the refrigerator, it preserves it, and cold preserves time. But cold also helps you. It creates time. Cold makes time, and it makes time because cold makes you more magnetic, and you're able to absorb more energy. And energy, to me, energy is time. Time is energy. Energy is time. So I think cold makes time by making you more magnetic. And of course, that would be based on your adaptation, the adaptation that you have. If you're not adapted, you won't be able to get those benefits. And the opposite of cold is heat. Heat speeds things up. Heat, you can get more work temporarily, but excessive heat, it makes the system more inefficient, and it speeds up time. It speeds up time. And usually heat doesn't really give you any time back unless we're talking about like light. Light is infrared. Infrared light is heat, and you can get time back that way, but that's again beyond the scope of this video. So again, and light is time itself. Light is like the currency. Or when I say light, I'm also talking about energy. So light and energy to me are synonymous. So light is time itself to me. And what else? Your environment, and also your thoughts and your feelings affect how you perceive time. What do I mean by that? Let's say you're in awe of something. Something's really impressive. Then time speeds up for you. The way you perceive it, time speeds up. Time flies by. But let's say you're depressed. If you're depressed, or you have these like negative feelings, time slows down for you. Maybe because the inside of your body is speeded up, and your perception of time time has slowed down for you. So like depression, time slows down. And empathy, when you empathize with someone, like you take on their feelings, you also take on their perception of time. So if they perceive time as slow, you're going to start perceiving time as slow. If you perceive time as fast, they're going to perceive time as fast. So empathy affects how you perceive time too. Okay, so that's objective and subjective time. Now I'm going to talk about, and I'll finish the video by talking about a couple of theories on how time works and what time is. Two things that I've learned about that I'll talk about here is presentism and eternalism. According to the theory of presentism, only the present is real. The past isn't real, and the future is just, there's no future. We're constantly creating as we go. And this theory seems very flawed to me for lots of reasons, such as the simple fact that you learn how to do something means that you took the past with you. You're bringing the past with you into the present. It's the simple fact that you even learned something. Because in order to use something that you've learned in the past, you have to actually still be it. It has to still be here to some degree. And the other is, I guess most notable, is eternalism. Eternalism it's the belief or the theory that the past, the present, and the future is still here. It's here right now. The past is here, and it's just as real as the future. Maybe we just can't perceive it. We can't perceive the past. But if we could perceive it, it will be just as real as the present. Or if we could perceive the future, it will be just as real as the present. And some of the great minds of today and yesterday, for example, like Einstein, Isaac Newton, a lot of their information, their teachings, their learnings is based on, or their theories is based on eternalism. Like some of Einstein's theories allude to time travel, like us actually being able to travel. Like, for example, the theory where he says that fast clocks that move fast run slower. Clocks that run slower move, time goes faster. Sorry, moving clocks run slower. Einstein's theory, and that alludes to beliefs in eternalism. So, time. What is? All right, video's running kind of long, so I'll say this, and I'll let it go, and whatever I have to talk about based on this, I'll put it in a future video. But I guess my message to you about time and the nature of time is that, to me, raw time is energy. It's energy. So keep yourself in situations that give you energy, like nature, and people that give you energy, like positive people, because you're absorbing all of that. And by putting yourself in those situations, positive good environments, and being around positive people, they put more life back into you. They buy you time. You create time by being in those situations. So there's so much more to talk about with this, and I'm going to go in so many different directions in the future. In the process of making this video, I learned I had quite a few epiphanies about just things in the universe that completely don't make any sense, and I want to talk about it. And like, it looks like some of what we've been taught is like a huge lies, and I want to address that in the future. And I want to talk more about the nature of time and what time really is. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you like this and appreciate it. And for you to help me grow, please give me your thoughts. Put them in the comment section below, and let me know what you think. It'll help me grow, and hopefully I've helped you grow to some degree by you watching this. So thank you so much. I love you, and you have a great rest of your day. I appreciate you. Thank you. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, browse. I'm gone.